Hey guys, Brad coming at you here with a little video. It's been a while, been a little too long, I guess. But yeah, after 6 weeks of the NFL season, we got a pretty good idea who teams are or might be. Or so the Dolphins. We'll start with them. They're 4-2, which I would have picked that up and ran with it if you told me that at the start of the season. Half our team is hurt, so that's an issue. But yesterday, got a big win against the Bears. I texted Jack that was one of the ugliest, most frustrating, and exciting games ever. Because that's exactly what it was. Um, we come out in the first quarter, outplay them, I think, a little bit. Trubisky missed a throw early on. He had all day to throw most of the day. I mean, we couldn't get near him because there was no Wake, no Harris. William Hayes out for the year. Like I said, had a corner. McCain was out, so they picked on McTire all day, and Taylor Gabriel was just eating him for lunch until we finally took McTire out. Oh, gosh. But, yeah. So, with all the injuries, the Bears should have won that game. Let's just be frank. That's kind of a bad loss for the Bears, let's be frank. With no quarterback, 2 starting offensive linemen out, 2 starting defensive linemen out, starting corner out. I mean, blah, 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 blah. And not to mention we are starting Brock Osweiler. And somehow we found a way to get a victory. The offensive line showed up. I was shocked. And everyone was worried about, like, oh, Khalil Mack or Leonard Floyd. I wasn't worried about them. I was worried about the interior because that's our problem. The tackles, as long as Tunzel and James played, I wasn't worried about them. I was worried about Akeem Hicks, linebackers blitzing through the middle, all that junk was what I was afraid of. And Akeem Hicks was a non-factor for really basically 95% of that game. So that was what surprised me was, we did a lot of kind of quick hit runs, and Frank Gore played really well. He brought it. He found the fountain of youth. It was just a weird game. Both teams had so many opportunities. Both teams just did so much dumb crap. Both teams had some awful turnovers. We both fumbled at the 1-yard line. Jordan Howard fumbled early in the game, and then obviously everybody probably watched the highlight where Drake fumbles in overtime at the 1-yard line. And both atrocious fumbles. These weren't forced fumbles. These were just horrible. Both of them were. And then Trubisky throws an horrible interception in the end zone. Brock throws a horrible interception that they take down to the 12-yard line. I don't even know why he was throwing that. I mean, there was so much back and forth, just bad, and then horrible tackling. They couldn't tackle Albert Wilson. Albert Wilson was just like, bam, bam, bam. Like, hey, I'm just going to run over here, and no one's going to tackle me until I'm in the end zone. Happened twice. So, the misconception, because I've seen some of the headlines like Osweiler shreds Bears. Let me put it in the real context for you. We had 274 yards after catch yesterday. Most of any game any team has had this season. 274. He threw for 380. So that means in the air, he had 106 yards he threw for. So just put it into perspective. This was not a shredding of the Bears defense. This was the Bears defense could not tackle Albert Wilson and others. That's what the issue was. And they didn't get hardly any pressure. I mean, Brock was only hurried a few times. And then, like I said, Trubisky was sacked a couple times, but he had some plays 6-7 seconds to throw the ball. So both offensive lines definitely won their battles overall. But, yeah, it was a crazy game. Like I said, each team had shots to win it. Each team kept giving it up. So it was a great win for us. I thought it was a must win. And tough loss for the Bears because, like I said, let's just be quite frank. Facing a team that had quite a bit of injuries, key players out, you need to win that game, and they didn't. And the other misconception was that Khalil Mack barely played. He played 62 of the damn snaps. He played, guys. He just was not effective. Now, he did hurt his ankle like midway through, but he was still out there, and honestly was just stonewalled. The other misconceptions that we double teamed him every play, that was not true either, believe it or not. Now, often we would have like Nick O'Leary or a running back sometimes, but it was not every play by any means. So, like I said, the offensive line just played well. Deserves credit for it. But yeah, I saw that misconception on one of the stations. They made it sound like Mac barely played. I was like, he played 62 of the 78 snaps, which in 100-degree heat is playing full time. So, yeah, that was kind of my rant. I was like, it just shows you how if you want to swing something one way or the other, you can. But I was like, yeah, so I'll give you what the real scoopage was on that. Yeah, he played most of the game. Now, again, he did have an ankle, which sure probably slowed him down, but come on. He played. Let's see, what else happened? Well, the Patriots Chiefs. If I hear another word about how amazing, it's kind of like the Dolphins Bears game was not an amazing game. Okay, it was exciting, but it was not a great, well played game. Same with the Chiefs Patriots. All right, no defense is not a great game. Just because it was 43-40 doesn't make it a great game. That was not a great game. I was just sitting there the whole time like, can someone at least cover somebody? You know? Because, like, the only reason why the Chiefs couldn't win is because Mahomes actually missed a lot of throws in that game. Especially early on when they kept settling for field goals. I mean, he missed 2 touchdowns, like easy, wide open guys. He just missed them. So, I mean, that game could have probably been 56 to whatever, you know. But it was like, I don't know. Again, maybe it's kind of a little bit of football purist in me, where I like a little resistance on the other side, you know. I don't like just up and down, score, score, score. You know, that to me is, yeah, they're good offenses, don't get me wrong, but come on. Come on. So, yeah, got some cards. Hines Ward. Nice 4-color patch auto. Joined Flawless Collegiate. Got the Steelers Browns. I also hit a James Washington patch auto that I already moved. But this is actually says it's game used. Game used Georgia Hines Ward. I don't know if I'm buying it. So, yeah. But supposedly, game used. Either way, cool card. Now we got a Nick Chubb. This is player worn for the Browns. I like Sonny Michel more than I do Nick Chubb. I've said that before. But I think Nick Chubb is definitely a capable back. But they've just only used Carlos Hyde, basically. So, he had 2 big runs against the Raiders, and they haven't really used him. So, it's been the Carlos Hyde show for the most part. A nice patch auto to 25. I killed this Flawless Collegiate break. This was all one break. And then I won this random for a Nick Chubb, Sonny Michel duel, number to 25. Very cool. And then last but not least, number to 15, the Sapphire version of one Baker Mayfield. So, crushed that Collegiate break. That was pretty cool. Baker Mayfield looks solid. You know, he's a rookie. I think all the rookie quarterbacks. See, it's just so hard to tell because, like, in Buffalo and Arizona, the teams around him just, offenses around him just aren't that good. So it's hard to evaluate Allen and Rosen in particular. But they look competent. And then Sam Darnold, he's kind of like what he was the last year in college, where he's a little up and down, but you definitely tell he's got the skills. Unfortunately, I was hoping he would be awful. And then Mayfield, again, has flash plays, and then you're like, they definitely need another wide receiver in Cleveland for sure. And I will have to say, through 6 games, you remember I was critical of the Dolphins letting Jarvis Landry go. So I'll have to eat a little crow. Through 6 weeks, the combo of Amendola and Albert Wilson is better than Jarvis Landry. So, through 6 games, Adam Gase was correct in doing what he did. So we'll see if that stays the same way throughout the year. But as of right now, Amendola and Albert Wilson, I would say, have outplayed what Jarvis Landry would do. So we'll see if that continues or not. Because you remember that's what I said I was going to compare it on, because we spent the same amount of money on those 2 guys as we could have on Jarvis, and there you go. Now, I started to learn a little bit more of why Jarvis isn't around anymore after the fact, but I started kind of understanding it more. But, thus point, he was right in doing so through 6 weeks. What else? The Eagles, no surprise to me. I kind of called that at the beginning. Consider this. The Eagles get more pressure on a quarterback than anyone in the National Football League. They hurry the quarterback more than anyone. Yet their pass defense still kind of stinks. So how bad does your secondary have to be when you have the number 1 hurrying defense in the league on quarterbacks and your pass defense still stinks? So I warned the Eagles fans about the secondary, and that has held true. They're very defensive line dependent. If they don't get there, you're going to be in trouble. Now, the offense looked good against the Giants. We'll see if that continues as Wentz continues to get back and other players do. Jason Peters looks like it might be time to retire. Just too many injuries and stuff. I think it's just time for him to go. But I look for the Eagles to get better, a little better throughout the year. But they still have the same problem that they will not be able to fix. So, again, they're going to have to outscore opponents. So that offense is going to have to get up to speed for sure. The Rams, you remember I said I was a little concerned. Did they just build a fantasy team? And maybe it wasn't going to be great together? Well, they look freaking great. Let's just be honest. So I would say my concerns were wrong on that one. So I was wrong about that one through 6 weeks. They look for real. They do miss Aqib Talib. It seemed like when he went out, the defense isn't nearly as good. So just one guy seems to make a difference because their linebackers are mediocre. Their safeties, I think, are mediocre. But corners, defensive line, that's kind of where the defense is built. So if they get Talib back, I think they're okay on defense. They'll be all right. Because the offensive line is balling. Goff actually didn't play well yesterday, but it didn't matter because Gurley ran for 800 yards, so it didn't matter. Other things, maybe I was right or wrong. I feel like Colin Cowherd right now. What he was right and what he was wrong about. Right? Case Keenum. I told you do not want that guy starting every week. Well, I think that's been proven to be the case. He's honestly looked bad, I would say 75% of the time. What else? The whole NFC is way better than the AFC. To this point, that has not been the case. That was the overwhelming sentiment that the NFC is way better than the AFC. You go look at the records and then the records facing each other. That has not been the case through 6 weeks. The AFC is every bit as good as the NFC. So we'll see if that, again, holds true throughout the year. But that sentiment has not actually been true thus far. The Bengals, my sleeper team, that looks to be about right. I thought they would at least have a winning record, and that looks like they're on pace to do so. They just can't beat the Steelers, man. They've won 14 of the last 57. They've only won 14 times against the Steelers in the last 57 games. They just can't beat the Steelers, man. So we'll see how they do, but I would say through 6 weeks, I think I hit that one pretty good. The Titans, scrappy bunch, got dominated yesterday by the Ravens. Holy moly. I was tuning in on and off watching that and the Rams Broncos kind of back and forth. And just, it kept getting worse. Oh, man. Now, Mariota got sacked 11 times. But he just looks awful. Okay? Now, of course, you're not going to look great if you got sacked 11 times. But there was a lot of times, he did the last thing you want a quarterback to do is the look at the rush. And that's what he was doing. Even when he had time, he was rushing it, and that's just what often quarterbacks do. And he just looks awful. I mean, I can sugarcoat it, but he just looked awful. So, but the Titans are a scrappy bunch now. They've had good wins, Eagles, Jags, they're just overwhelmed yesterday against a good defense. But, yeah, they just can't. There's zero efficiency on that offense right now. So they got to figure something out. Because, I know people are calling for Blaine Gabbert. Problem is, Blaine Gabbert has a ceiling of this. Mariota, if he can get his crap together, the problem is, I would say Mariota is playing worse than Blaine Gabbert. But Mariota's ceiling's at least up to here, which is what they're going to need to make the playoffs. So it's tough. So I would say you're just going to have to stick with Mariota and hope he freaking figures it out. Now, I know he does have is it a nerve thing with his hand? Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't. But this is stuff we've seen throughout is it his 4th year now? So I'm just starting to wonder, and maybe that's just who he is, But they're a scrappy bunch, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them. Who are they playing? They're playing someone good next week. The Chargers, I think. Wouldn't surprise me to see them beat the Chargers next week. But we'll see. Let's see, what else? This is a perfect example, and I feel like this is why you don't do it. You remember how I'm always ranting about how I never pay running backs huge money, usually, and I don't take them like top 5 in drafts. All right? Well, like Todd Gurley, he's been balling, right? But that offensive line's been balling. Now, Todd Gurley's amazing. But did Todd Gurley equal any wins his first couple years in the league? He was just as good then. No, you had to get a quarterback and a competent offensive coach, right? And an offensive line. I mean, you need to get all this stuff. Saquon Barkley, been amazing, right? You could argue he's been the best back other than Todd Gurley in the league. But how many wins does that equal for the Giants? Why? Man, you could have spent that on maybe the best offensive lineman in the draft. That would probably produce more wins. You need to move on from Eli Manning, which is because he hasn't been good for 5 years. I think it's okay to move on now. But I ran about that on Facebook a little bit. I think on Everett Wenzel's post. I'm like, I don't get why fans and the organization are so reluctant to move on from Eli Manning. I don't get it. But I've ranted about that before. So, yeah. They just don't equal victory. Pittsburgh with Le'Veon Bell. You see what James Conner's not even that great of a running back. He's not. But you see the stats he's putting up. Le'Veon Bell's not that valuable. He's just not. It's just the way the game is played now. Running backs, not that valuable. You can get 2 of them in the 3rd and 4th rounds and be successful. They're a luxury item. It's not that they're not nice to have, but it's a luxury item is the way I look at it. But that's enough for this week. That's all I got. Dolphins, I think, play Detroit at home hopefully we can get Cameron Wake and Bobby McCain back on the defense. Those are the two big ones we need back because we had 0 pass rush the last 2 weeks. Well, we actually got some pressure against the Bengals. Dalton was just a magician. But, yeah, we did not get enough pressure yesterday. Trubisky had all day. Charles Harris was also out. Like I said, it was just a litany of people out. But, yeah, we need McCain back because we can't play McTire, and you don't want to depend on Tankersley. So we need McCain back. We'll see, because now we're playing 2 consecutive teams coming off bye weeks. Thanks, NFL. So these teams are going to be healthy. So, yeah, we'll see. I think that's I'm a little worried about. Like, I think the Bears, for instance, I think the Bears are a better team than the Lions. But we might. I don't know. We'll see. I think it's going to be a good game, the Lions Dolphins. So we'll see. But that's all I got. Bye-bye. And have a great week, folks.